You shall not be plagued by these things anymore. You are going on. You are going on. The way has been made. So when you shut your hand, you are going on. You are pressing on. You shall see the promise, the promise.
Amen. You are God and your love endures. That's Kimberly and Alberto Riviera. That particular song is entitled New Day. Came out around 2006. I played it frequently at the in the sanctuary of the old church. There's another piece to that I really enjoy called Capture. I have placed a link there for those who have joined us this morning. Well, good morning. It's good to see those in the Zoom room. Amir, Angela, Mom, Courtney, and those of you on the YouTube channel that I can't see at the present moment. So we're going to move forward into this morning's presentation. Welcome to Serendipity Sunday. I am Asar, also known as Greg Stanton. I'm your facilitator this morning. Each and every Sunday morning, we're out here, same time. You can either join by way of the Zoom room, or you can join by way of the YouTube channel. If you join the YouTube channel and you hit that subscribe button, anytime I go live, probably 5 minutes before, you'll get the notification. That way you don't have to come in through the Zoom room. The Zoom room allows for a deeper level of interaction because at the present moment, I believe I'm not set up technically in the proper way that I could engage you all. And I don't have anyone to run the board on that side. So in order to continue to be the one-man show and get it done with the commitments I have, I just keep doing things the way I do them until we move into back into having a boots on the ground community. Then we'll have those people who are committed to seeing this happen. Well, welcome this morning. I pray things are well with each of you as you have joined us today. Today's message has to do with the power of a story. It has to do with the process of changing our stories. If you had the opportunity to open up the email this morning, you have seen, you know by now what the message is. Let me see if I have that on my, I don't think I put it on my phone to come up, but you have it and you're with us this morning. So we're going to get started. So I want to welcome each of you to this morning's edition of Serendipity Sunday. Each and every Sunday we're out here and something powerful is being shared with you that is life-changing, something that you can use in your life as you move through life to master this thing called life. Well, storytelling. I want to talk about that this morning. This morning, our meditation, we're inside of 40 days of What Must I Release. Those who have been joining us every morning at 6 a.m. and Saturday and Sunday is at 8 a.m. For 40 days, we're dealing with What Must I Release. And today we're talking about the process of denying the power. This is really important. And so I want to look at that, and we are looking at the power of the story. And all of us have stories, and some of us have lies, and we need to be able to differentiate between the two. Reading bedtime stories for children is an important element in a child's success. I've done it with my children. Not only have I read bedtime stories, but I've been a reader at one of the local schools. In years gone by, I would go and read to the third graders. Some educators believe that after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing that we need most in the world. That is, telling stories not only develop our reading skills, our quality of writing, instructions, or the construction of sentences, but it also helps in increasing the imagination and creativity and communication skills. So we read, and in reading, those does certain things to us. But when we read fairy tales and when we read stories, it piques our interest and it causes us to have a desire to read. That's why our children are turned on to fairy tales. I know one of my favorite books as a kid, the first book I was able to read was the Dick and Jane series, and see Spot run and see Dick throws the ball, Jane trips and fall. Those stories, all those 3-letter words, and you were mastering it. That when you was cooking with fire. My favorite stories were the Curious George. Curious George was my favorite stories. Matter of fact, I turn my children on to the Curious George stories, and I'm kind of turn my grandchildren onto it because I don't know if my children have done the same. But the stories and those stories piqued my curiosity. It piqued my interest in reading and my imagination. So stories have a powerful place to play in the unfoldment of who we are as human beings. But there is also a dark side to the stories we tell. So this morning, I kind of want to unpack this conversation around stories that we'll hold on to. Whether we realize it or not, we are often stuck in old stories that have deep power over us. And many times these things that we call stories are just lies, stories that have been embellished. There's some advantages to the stories we tell. I'm a graduate of Landmark, which is a personal development course I went through in 2010. And one of the sequences of the teachings we went through had to do with rackets. And so our stories are what we call rackets. And so we want to look at that. It's a unproductive way of being or acting that includes the complaint that something shouldn't be the way it is, or that something happened to us, and we hold on to those stories. So we're going to kind of look at those stories as rackets, things or excuses. Whether we realize it or not, we are stuck in these stories that have deep power over us. Many of these stories keep us in a terrible twos. That is, we're too old, we're too unattractive, we're too broken, we're too busted, we're too broke, we're too ashamed, we're too unworthy, we're too black, we're too white, we're too male, too female, we're too all these things, stories that we have. And we don't believe life can change. You tell the story long enough, the story becomes reality becomes real. You start believing the stories that you've been telling. And when you look at the stories you've been telling, they happened many, many years ago, but the way you tell it is though it is happening today. As a matter of fact, if you tell it, your body responds as though you respond chemically as though it's happening. Based on the old beliefs, we interpret, respond, and make decisions in the present time. So our whole life is filtered through the stories that we tell ourselves. And many times these stories are really limiters. They keep us from walking in our divinity. They keep us from walking in the fullness of who we were designed to be. Now, the word of God tells us now there's therefore no condemnation to those who are in Christ. And that is, if long as you keep a sin conscious, long as you keep an awareness of having missed the mark, you will never show up at the capacity that you have the ability to show up as. Many of these stories keep us in a place that we really don't want to be. We don't desire to be, but usually there's some advantage to our stories. Our stories have history. Our stories are filled with words. Our stories are something that we've come to trust in. Our stories are take a place inside of our minds, or take up space called memory. Our story represents our experience, the things externally that we've experienced. But we not have to know that our external experience can damage our internal experience. That is, the experience is where your experience should be evolving from. Your experience should not be evolving inside of you. That is, you're so fixated on what has happened. You're so fixated as what is happening. The word of God tells us to be carnally minded is death. Now, what is carnally minded is to be fixated on the external world, to let the conditions that you see, to let the conditions that you feel really dictate to you. Now, if you were not impacted by your sensory self, it is good. What I mean by that is this. Our sensory selves are formatted from the age of from the time we're born to the age of 7. Our sensory self is used to format the disk of the reality we live. So if you are in an environment that is not conducive to full expression, you're being formatted for less than. And then our sensory selves is where we store our memories. Our sensory selves is where we smell smoke. We know that a fire is near. And so when the external factors present themselves internally, the program begins to kick on. Smell smoke, run. Hear a lion's roar, run. And so if we hear these things, we are programmed to react. But what we need to understand that many times what has happened on the outside is an outlier, or we don't realize that we have been given dominion to control the lives in which we desire to live. Too many of us are waiting for a God out there or up there to do something that has been relegated to us to do. We have been given the distinct function of dominating the worlds we live in. And now here's the world, your world. You're not called to have dominion over anyone else's world. Parallel universes. My world can exist at the very same time that your world exists and not have to collide. You don't have to do what I do, agree with the way I live my life for me to live a full expression, as well as I don't have to live your life. In the same way, because we don't understand that, we think that if I want to be prosperous, it has to be at the expense of someone else. That's not true. If I want to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, it has to be at the experience of something else. That's why we compete. But the reality is, in life, you have no competition. Your only competition is yourself. You don't have to compete with anyone. Know that. You must realize that's what's meant for you will get to you. I don't care what the numbers are. If it's meant to be yours, you'll get that which you are desirous of. And so we want to begin to look at our belief systems. Based on these beliefs we hold, the way we interpret the world, the way we react to the world, not even respond. A responder is one who is able to use judgment to make a wise decision based on what is showing up. Just because something shows up does not mean it's real. Even that which is real can still be an illusion. And so you have to learn to shift what is showing up as real, realizing that they are all illusions and that you have the ability to change your world simply by change the way you look at the thing you look at change. Reinterpreting what is going on from what is happening to you to what is being going on around you. So we have to be very clear that we cannot walk as victims and desire to be a victor or stand in the victor circle. You have to unseat the number one seed in your life. The number one seed is the program that you're running. I love March Madness. We are in March Madness, and we've seen this past week that some of the number one seeds, a number one seed is that team that is picked or is given the first place, number one in that bracket. And it's really geared to or believe that they'll come out of that bracket as the number one. But there's a lot of number ones that were upset. And I'm saying to you, even though you have been programmed to be the underdog, the undercard, you can upset the story. You have to be willing to change the story. You have to be willing no longer to be a participant as a loser, but a participant as a winner. It's the stories we tell ourselves that dictates the end that we will experience. So it's really important that we understand that we can change our current reality by making right decisions. Now, let's look at the scripture. In the book of John, chapter 5, when Jesus was at the pool of Bethesda with the paralyzed man means the person who is making no movement. That could be you and I. We're stuck in the same old story. We're paralyzed. And he asked this person that was paralyzed, do you want to be made well? Do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be able to function with full capacity? And that's my question today. And it's not a rhetorical question. It's a real question. Because, many of you are holding on to old hurts, old pains, old stories. Many of you are trying to get out of ruts. And the question today is not, first of all, the reality is that you're paralyzed. The reason why you're paralyzed is because you're using a way to accomplish something that in no way will it work. We must begin to use the principles, the law. We must understand the law. We must understand our design. We must understand our capacity to change a thing just by the words we speak. Our worlds are framed by the words we speak. A story is framed by words. A story is framed by words that are used to paint a picture. And many of us are painting a picture of our own lives in a bleak way. When you believe the doctor's report, you are painting a picture. If the report says you have this diagnosis that comes with this prognosis and you believe it, guess what? You will receive the thing you believe. The word tells us, be it done unto you according to your belief. We don't realize how powerful our stories are. Our stories are our belief system. So we got to sort through our beliefs and create new beliefs that's predicated upon truths. Now, he asked this man, do you want to be made well? Do you want to be made whole? Do you want to move from the place that you are? The man had a list of reasons why he must not be healed. Over the years, he had reasons why he couldn't be healed because of things that have transpired. And sometimes we say, it's because this has happened. It's because this is happening. It's because I can't do this. So we have these lists of why we haven't been healed and why we can't be healed, or why we are paralyzed. I'm paralyzed because I'm black. I'm paralyzed because I don't have a degree. I'm paralyzed because I'm on a fixed income. I'm paralyzed because I'm a woman. I'm paralyzed because I'm a man. I'm paralyzed because I'm transgender. I'm paralyzed because I'm gay or lesbian. I mean, we come up with all these stories. Now, don't move into judgments. I'm talking to everybody. So we're fixed. We have a fixed state of being. But in this story, Jesus tells us a story. See, this is a powerful story. A story don't always have to be true for the story to have power. It's the message that the story is bringing. And Jesus says simply to this person, stand up, take your mat, and walk. Gave the man a directive. When the man is ready to deny the power of his old stories, lack and limitations, he takes the first step. And that first step is to stand. Not lying, not sit in, but to stand and take up your mat. The mat represents your foundation. Take up the foundation of who you are and move. Take it up. Take up your mat this morning and walk. Move from where you are to where you desire to be. Your destiny is always tied to a destination. As long as you're determined to stay where you are, you'll never get to where you desire to be. So this morning, the question I have to all of you, do you have faith to step into a new story in your divine identity? In the scripture, we see in John 5, 8, 9, he's mandating, or he's telling this person, you have to stand up. You have to take your mat. You have to walk. The psychologist, psychiatrist, the pill, none of those things can do it for you. Religion can't do it for you. You must stand and walk. Our affirmation today was, I am ready to boldly step into my divine divinity. That's an affirmation, but there's no action there. I'm ready. The action is when you say, I step into my divine identity. Today, I boldly step, right now, wherever you are, say it. I boldly step into my divine identity. Right here, right now. Now, that's the start. There's an action should be followed by that. But let me unpack it a little further. Because sometimes we get stories and lies mixed up. Let's start with a lie. A lie means the misrepresentation of one or more facts in order to gain a benefit. Now, sometimes things that have happened to us, we embellish them that they have more power. So we, in essence, are lying. We add to the story in order that the story become more powerful or that we can gain or benefit from it. So lying means the misrepresentation of one or more facts in order to gain a benefit or harm another person. So sometimes you can tell a lie. How many black men were hung or killed or sent to jail by lies? Okay, so lies often harm somebody, deceive someone, even if it's yourself. Whether the actor knows or should know that the misrepresentation will be relied upon by another person. When you lie, you know the misrepresentation is influencing the hearer. So usually a lie is meant to truly deceive someone, whereas a story is not that. The Bible is filled with stories, not lies. Now, in some cases, stories have been manipulated that they are lies. But for the most part, when you read the Bible, you should read it as stories, metaphors, not necessarily looking at it as historically correct. But what is it saying to me? What is the message? The definition of a story is a description, either true or imagined, of a connected series of events. And a story is usually told, whether it's true or imagined, not a lie, but it's something imagined. Why? It's a connected series of events for a message to be conveyed. Like as we talk about Michael Jordan today. His story is embellished. He's a real person, but his story is being embellished. Someone will say he jumped from the 3-point line. The real message is this brother had the ability to fly. So when we read the Bible, we must understand it metaphysically. You got to understand your life. When you look at your life, you got to look at your life through the lenses of a metaphysical lens. What is life showing me? What is the lesson that I'm getting from this? So when we talk about a story, we understand a story has history, is filled with words. What are you saying to yourself? The words you use develop a level of trust or mistrust. The experience inside of the story impacts you and your memory of the story. All this is part of good storytelling. And what stories do we tell ourselves? As we walk through the day, we say, I can't. As we walk through the day, we project what is going to happen versus what we desire to happen. You got to ask yourself, the stories that you are recanting, do they hold true? Are they a lie? Are they beneficial to you? The one thing you must know, a lie is an embellished story that does wrong to the hearer. The more it's embellished, the more powerful it becomes. And if as a therapist, I listen to people. That's why I decided to step away from therapy, because people will keep embellishing the story and don't want to let go of the story because it's their racket. There's people that have made millions of dollars by telling their story. The problem with that, they have been able to take a issue in their life and cash in on it. And then you have so many people who do the same thing, but never cash in on it. But the deficit of the story impacts them. I get so sick of hearing, no, I reframe that. I shut my ears down when I hear people say, I'm broken. I need to be healed. I mean, this is the language of today. I need healing. Well, there's something you can do. But a lot of times people are just saying the things that are apropos to say today, taking on other people's story. You hear what people say it, so you say it. You got to stop saying what other people say if that thing that they're saying is not going to help you. So you ask yourself about your stories. One of the things I want you to ask yourself today, what story are you continually telling? Seriously, what's your racket? How do you make sense out of your life? What story justifies your life? Is it an outright lie or a truth that you've embellished? Maybe something did happen to you. There's a good chance it did happen. Is that past or present tense or future tense? Is it happening to you today? And the way you interpret it when it happened to you, now that you are out of the situation, can you see? I was in a situation yesterday. I was at a day party, and I was taking pictures, and I was taking a picture of a couple, and the gentleman just repositioned his seat, and it bumped up against the lady who was standing. And now, first of all, she was a visitor, so she hadn't been at the set before. I already could tell that, because if you're in a set, you're going to have people bump up to you. And he said, I'm sorry. She turned around and said, I'm standing here. Just whole negative body language. And the brother said, I'm sorry. And then she said something really smart mouth. And he said, wait a minute. I didn't say that to you, sister. And then he turned around and said, sister, I didn't say that to you. Then she said, well, I thought I heard that. And never did she say, I apologize. But she still had this attitude. And I guarantee it's tied to stories she's held, that nobody's going to do anything to me and get away with it. So when situations happen in our lives, we filter our situations through what has happened and is happening in our minds. You ever seen a situation like that and you were like, man, it didn't take all that. That brother went in on him, or that sister went in on him. And I see it all the time. When people run around expressing as angry, they're angry at things that has happened. But then they begin to tell the story. We have to be very careful. Even as in the conscious community, I see a lot of storytellers. I see people that want to keep you tied to a story. What good does it do you to know that we were once kings? Well, I mean, seriously. If there's no follow through as how to make that appropriation of we were once kings and I'm a king. Just to know that we were once kings sends another level of frustration, or have individuals living in the past. So we got to be careful as people of African descent, particularly. Not only do we have those who are labeled as oppressors cashing in on us, but we have those who are our brothers and our sisters that cash in on us. I get the worst service when I have gotten the worst service when I go to our places. And that makes me say to myself, I'm not going to be subject to poor service just to say that I give my dollars to our people. No, I'm not going to do that. If you want my dollars, you have to present to me a product or a service that is worth my time. I was disappointed yesterday. I went to breakfast at a Black establishment that I have been at before. And sometimes this whole pandemic, people are using that to give mediocre service. So now they give you a plate, but then they give you plasticware. I don't need to come to eat at your restaurant if I can have an eating experience better than I can give myself. I could cook some eggs. I can do this. I can do what I've come to your establishment to have you do for me. And so what we have to understand that back to stories. And even with that, the story will be, oh, we're in a pandemic. We don't have a dishwasher. We don't have this. We don't have that. So people begin to have these stories. And a lot of times our stories allow us to show up less than. Instead of saying, regardless of the situation, we're going to give our customers the right experience. They're going to get real plates, silverware. They're going to get top service. But because we are in the pandemic, we're post-pandemic, now people are still delivering service at a mediocre level. The bar has been lowered. And in your life, the more you tell the story, the more you lower the bar. the bar of expectations. So you got to ask yourself, if the story I'm telling myself, is it happening today? Yes, it did happen. Yes, there were a group of oppressive people that oppressed my people. Am I being oppressed? I'm in a system that is racist in orientation, but I don't allow myself to be in that language. I know that I can do all things with the Christ consciousness, with the awareness of my divinity. I know that I don't have to take on the narrative that is being projected. That's why you have to be careful looking at television. It's telling you your vision. It's telling you what you should see. It's tying you to old stories. So we have to be very careful. Why do I need to continue to know about the past? Because people say if you don't know the past, you're bound to repeat the past. But I beg to differ with you that if you are present to right here, right now, and if you're using great judgment, if you are attuned with spirit, you will avoid certain things. I don't get caught in that question. I'm living in the right here and the right nowness of today. I'm aware of what needs to change in my life today. I'm aware of the stories that I may be telling myself that keeps me paralyzed in this, paralyzed in just having enough, paralyzed in sickness and disease, paralyzed in being mediocre. Many of us are showing up just mediocre. We're just going through the motions. One thing about a story, a good story has the same result, the end. So there comes a point in your life where you must be willing to say the end, that is over. The story is over, and not have to rehearse. Hearse takes people to the grave. So you're rehearsing that story that had you paralyzed. It's really that simple. People say, well, no, you got to go through trauma training and all this stuff. No, you just have to come to the place of the realization that is not happening anymore. One, if it has the potential to happen, I can guard against this happening. I'm not that child anymore that was subject to an adult. I'm an adult who can stand my ground. So we got to have these real conversations. It happened before, but it won't happen no more. And then usually those who are perpetuating those kinds of acts on victims look for people with victim mentality. But if you say it won't happen here, it won't happen here. But if you make space for the possibility, and you make the space by saying it happened to me before, it may happen again, so I'm going to be paranoid. Now, if that's the way you choose to deal with it, that's cool. But my question is, how's that working for you? It comes to a place where somebody has to encounter you and ask you the question, do you want to be made well? Do you want to be prosperous? Do you want to be healthy, wealthy, and wise? What's your response? Do you give a number of reasons why that's not possible? Or do you say, I do, and then respond as told to? So here's another thing. The word says, though you got 10,000 instructors, you have not many fathers. And if you've never grown up in a home with a balanced father, you don't understand that. See, a father comes along and just tell you, get up, clean up. Mama might say, mine, so when you wake up, clean up. Baby, can you clean up your room? No, daddy gonna say, clean the room up. Where you going? No, you going back in there and clean up the room. So what I'm saying, even in ministry, in today, we have a lot of people who are not fathers, not true leaders, not telling you. Sometimes you need to be told what to do. Sometimes you need that kickstart. This man was told. First, he gave permission. He wanted to. He said, I want to be whole. I don't no longer want to be paralyzed. Then Jesus said, stand up. And he stood up according to his belief. Jesus didn't help him up. Jesus just told him, sometimes all you have to do is stand up. And then take your mat. Take the foundation of who you are and move from that place where you sometimes you could be in a place where you are set up to be victimized. Sometimes you're in a place, an environment that cuts on stinking thinking. So you got to be willing to move. And I said earlier, your destination, your destiny is always tied to a destination. You will not be whole where you are. You will not be wealthy where you are. And I'm not talking about a physical place, but a mental space. Expand your mind. Don't be steeped in the problem. Step into the solution. That's my message this morning. You know, I'm a little different than your average minister because I've been a practitioner, an evidence-based practitioner, clinician. And I've seen those who made movement in their lives. And I've seen those who just spend hundreds of thousands of dollars literally for medicine, on books, on conversation. But there's a powerful thing called a coach. A coach does not tell you what you want to hear. The coach tells you what you need to hear. The coach kicks you off its team if you're not doing what needs to be done. And some of you just need coaches in your life who's not just going to come alongside of you and let you remain where you are as long as you're paying the money. No, your money cannot make up for my time. A true coach knows that his worth is found in his ability to speak words to power into the lives of those individuals that they believe in themselves. Just as we look back at the NCAA, those teams that got upset by the undercard believed in themselves. And they played with the ferocity that was the ferocity that was needed to win. Whether they won by 1 point or they won by 20 points, they won was all that was needed. So my challenge to you this morning is ask yourself, do you want to move from the current state to the desired state? And that's all I have this morning. Not going to embellish it. Don't have nothing else to say. But before we close this morning, I do want to say a couple things. If this ministry has been a blessing to you, there's a couple things. Enrollment. That is, if you're not part of a ministry and you are looking for a place that you can call your community, I know right now it's a virtual community, but ultimately within little or no time, it could go from being a virtual community to a boots on the ground community. But it starts with those individuals identifying, I want to be part of Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. Now, I really want people to begin to make that commitment. I know a lot of people show up, but just because they show up don't mean they're really part of it. A lot of people come because it's practical. What you get here don't cost you nothing. It's something you can take away. But now I need to build community. I need to get some traction. And I need those who really believe in what this ministry is all about to become part of a community that we can do some powerful things in this earth. If you're interested in that, just shoot me a text. Also, if you're interested in supporting the ministry today, you can go to the website, www.oasisspiritualcenter.com. Go to the giving tab, and there's the various platforms by which you can transmit what you have into the ministry. So I thank those who participate in that manner. So there's a couple of hands up. I see Cheryl's hand and then Courtney. I'm going to start with, good morning, Cheryl. Your hand, you have the mic.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Great day. The question is for the gentleman that was there when Jesus told him to take up his bed and walk. He just immediately did that. He didn't hesitate. He didn't say, I can't do. He just did it. So could he have done that all along?
Yes, he could have. But here's the situation. You call rackets. So when we look at a racket, is the things we say to ourselves because we benefit from it. For a long time, he benefited by being the paralytic who sat by the road. People gave him things. But then there comes a point in your life where you're sick and tired of government programs. You're sick and tired of people giving you things. And then you come to the realization that this ain't that. And so sometimes we have to allow for the evolution. Sometimes we don't know what we really desire until we experience what we've experienced. This ain't the way. Working 40-hour jobs just ain't getting it. For some of you all, working a 40-hour job period is not the way to go, because there's something that being required of you that needs your full attention and your time. But when you're in the paradigm of I must work for wealth, then you get caught in that. So you're sure that's a great observation. He could have done it at any time, but it comes back to this: be it done unto you as you believe. And believing is a evolving thing. We get rid of old beliefs that don't serve our highest and greatest good. We take on new beliefs that serve our highest and greatest good. And that's what Oasis Spiritual Center represents. It's a new way of having a spiritual experience. It's from the position of I'm not a human being, but I'm a divine human being having a human experience. Our divinity is powerful. Did I answer your question, Cheryl?
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good question. Good question. All right. Courtney, I have unmuted you. You can go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for the teaching. I really appreciate it. I feel that it has really kind of given me a breakthrough, to be honest with you today, because and I won't go into it, the story that I've told about my father over the years. And the thing is that the way I interpreted it was incorrect. And also the parts that I was choosing to remember just didn't serve my highest good. So I'm choosing to remember that my father really loved me, and that my father was very affectionate to me. And he showed me that a man can give that affection and be tender towards his children. He wanted me to be a lady. That was important to him. He didn't want me bragging my muscles like my brothers, and he was a protector. So I'm just choosing to not only, tell a new story, but look at it through a fresh lens and just really know that my father was there all my life, in all my thoughts and my dreams, and just he was there. He impacted my life in such a positive way. I wouldn't be who I am had I not had those years with him, and I was able to spend his last days with him. So I'm just looking at it from a place of gratitude and appreciation. So I have a whole new story now, and I'm so thankful.
Can I since you have been transparent, can we unpack this so somebody can see the how this has evolved for you? So early on, what story were you telling yourself?
So the story that I was telling myself, and it's totally my pleasure to do this, I don't mind at all, was that my father left. My father chose to not be in my life. And, it really impacted me. My father abandoned me. He rejected me.
So we're going to take it a step at a time. So the story that you were telling, what age did you start this story? Or how old were you when when this story was unfolding for you?
I was about 6 or 7.
Okay. So you were interpreting life through the lenses of a child.
Yes.
And so a child's story has followed you even into adulthood.
Yes.
So let me ask you this: did your father? Now, this is how I would take Courtney through a coaching session. I would ask Courtney, did her father abandon her, leave her life because of her?
And I would say no.
Okay. What caused your father to leave?
Him and my mother divorced.
Okay.
And I'm assuming she didn't want him in the house. He decided to go home to be with his family. He might have needed that support.
Excellent. So as an adult, you understand what that means. But as a
Yes.
child, you don't understand that. And at the same time, we also have to make space for people to do what represents their highest and greatest good. And we sometimes, when we're caught in the midst of other people's stories, they become our stories. When we get called, example, when we look at the group of people known as Africans born in the West, we have to be careful that we don't allow the story of the enslaved to be our story, because we are not enslaved, but we can become enslaved if we take on the story. Not to discount what has happened to our ancestors, but we can't let other people. Now, this is something that pro-Black people don't want to hear. For me to say, I can't let somebody else's problem become my problem. Here's the reality of that. It sounds good to say my brother's problem is my problem, but it's not good, because my brother didn't do what he needed to do when he had the opportunity to do it, but he squandered it. Why should his problem become my problem? Because he was irresponsible. I have compassion for him, but guess what? You make your bed, you have to lie in it. We have to begin to help people to grow up. So back to Courtney. So one of the things I would like Courtney to see in a session was that the way she's defined the situation wasn't the situation. So now that makes space for the possibility that she has value, whereas as a child, she didn't see the value because she believed her father had left and it looked like it was because of her.
Yeah,
And so
yes.
those are the things we have to begin to unpack, because the stories we tell ourselves, we have to know all the players. We got to know, was it our story or were we inside of somebody else's story? And most people are living miserably inside of other people's stories. Yeah.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I hope that you continue to unpack that and you use that in a powerful way, because I believe we're born into the right families, to the right situations. Everything that we are part of helps us to evolve into being the powerful being we have been designed to be. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Courtney.
Thank you.
Excellent. Let me see here. I don't see any other. And if there's anybody who's on YouTube this morning and that's on, Cheryl, I know you are on YouTube. Can you see if there's any questions, anything I need to address before we wrap up? I want to say it's good to see you, Tanya. Good to see you, Carrie, Mom, Angela, Amir, Cheryl, Courtney, all those who have joined in the Zoom room this morning. While we prepare to leave, I want to remind everyone that every Tuesday night, we get lit. Lessons in Truth Tuesdays. We get lit up. We get lit up with truth that transforms. This past week, we dealt with the need to be born again. We all need to be born again, but looking at that from the metaphysical perspective, not born again to go to heaven, not born again to be loved by God, but born again to be realigned with who we are and were designed to be, and to show up more powerfully. Excellent. Awesome. So it looks like there is no other questions. No other comments. Thanks for being a father to us this morning. I needed to hear this directive. Excellent. And sometimes when we're inside of somebody else's drama, when somebody chooses to leave us, when somebody they're not leaving us. They're doing what they believe to be that which represents their highest and greatest good. And I'll share this story, and I share it openly. I was married for 30 years. The 25 of them was wonderful. We had the challenges that come with Black relationships, the pain, the power, the passion of a Black relationship. But there came the point in Tony's life where she desired not to be married no more. And it wasn't because she wanted to run off and just be with another man. She had her reasons. And I had to step both sides and say, because for a long time I would say, if I do this, she'll stay. If I do this, if I buy this, if I get another fur, if I go on another vacation, if I do all these things. But you got to allow people to make their decisions. And it's difficult when you love someone. It's difficult when you are enmeshed, attached to someone. But you don't have to look at it as though she left me, he left me. They went into the direction that they felt represented their highest and greatest good. And the reality is, none of us want anyone to be with us that don't want to be with us. Come on now. So we have to be comfortable with knowing that there may come when two people get married. I've not met a couple yet that said that they wouldn't be there till the end. But every divorce started with those same affirmations or that same intent. But everything changes. Nothing stays the same. We got to be willing to make space and be okay when things change. But know this, when they change for the worse, they're going to change for the good. Because all things work together for the good of those who understand this law and are living according to their purpose, not living according to somebody else's purpose. You all were born into this earth world by yourself. Now, you came by way of your mom and your dad, but you entered in by yourself. Even if you were a twin, somebody popped out first. Somebody was extracted first. But you all come into this world by yourself to have your expression. God individualized as you, working through you to experience this thing called life as you. Now, let me get off my soapbox. But I just encourage you guys to rise up, take up your mats, and at least step outside of the situation. Take one step outside of the circle you've been sitting in. Take one step outside of the situation, and a new possibility presents itself. Unless you step out and sit down in the same mindset. Change your mind, you change your world. That's all I have. I'm going to close with this song this morning. I will package this up for you, and you can listen to it again at some point in the future. But I want to close with this last song. It's called Captured. We was playing New Day, but we're going to play this song called Captured. Those who can stick around for the entirety of the song, you can do so. Those of you who want to listen to part of it, you can leave. But I'm going to let this play, and I want you to pay some attention to these words.
And I have drawn you with my loving kindness, because you have captured my heart. over you.